Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football. The fellas sitting here early July, just itching to talk about some game previews. Dill, one of those games that we've had marked on our calendar since the schedule came out. Miami Hurricanes going on the road to the Florida Gators in what seems like just a must-win game for both of these head coaches, for both of these programs. And I think on top of that, two programs that we've taken a ton of deep dives into over the last couple of months. And we both like these rosters a lot heading into 2024. I think it all comes down to which team starts to play winning football. And you look at the story of the Miami Hurricanes, the Florida Gators, they've had really talented teams. They're going to have very talented teams heading into 2024. Which teams start to put that on the field a little bit more? We're going to find out a lot about these two programs. Week 1 in 2024, fired up to get into it. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys and many of y'all who've been rocking with the fellas for the last couple of months and really years at this point know our favorite thing to do, break down these games, get a little nitty gritty. The amount of support you guys continue to show truly does mean a lot. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Much more importantly, it's going to be hot in the comment section. We understand that we have to make some picks. Let it fly. Like, that's the best part about college football. This is a rivalry game. This is a game that there's a reason the line is 2.5 points. It's going to be a fun game in the swamp. Let it fly in the comment section. Drop your score predictions. And Dill, without further ado, let's get into this one. I want to start with the keys to the game for this Florida Gators offense going up against this Hurricanes defense. And you look at probably the biggest matchup that I look at, that is, can Florida pass protect against the Miami Hurricanes pass rush that I think will be one of the better units in the country. Now, there are a lot of ways to have this conversation. If you're the Florida Gators, I think you have to be really aware of the ball coming out quick. You look at where you can attack this Miami Hurricanes defense, it's probably in the back end. This is it's an inexperienced secondary. We've talked a lot about it. You look at this Miami Hurricanes roster, there's a lot of boxes checked. One of the boxes that is probably not checked until we see it on the field in 2024 is the secondary. And you're Florida, you have wide receivers like Elijah Badger and Eugene Wilson who are elite after the catch with the football in their hands. If I'm Billy Napier, the ball's coming out quick. It's coming out on time to my playmakers and making this Miami Hurricanes young secondary come up and tackle these Florida Gator wide receivers.
I'm totally on board with that. I think you even looked at some of the things Miami struggled with last year, and that was before obviously turning over the safety position, having to add a new cornerback into the fold. I think there were some moments where picks, rubs, some of those plays where they get the ball out quick, they were giving up too much space. You look at that Louisville game, even that Florida State game, some of those moments where they were like a half step late, let's say, on switching off or dealing with those type of plays. And again, if you're that way with Florida, I think they do have the weapons to be really, really difficult, especially with Eugene Wilson, because his ability to accelerate and make guys miss in space, it's at a different level. I don't even think we've seen the most of it yet. So again, that does feel like the avenue to Florida, because it's going to be really, really hard to just drop back and kind of do a basic passing attack against this Miami team.
And we've talked, I've kind of banged the table for Florida to push the ball down the field a little bit more. In this particular game, it's going to be hard to drop back and throw against this Hurricanes team with the pass rush that they have. Now, I'm optimistic that this Florida offensive line has gotten significantly better from what you saw in 2023. That being said, we haven't seen it on the football field yet. You look at one of the biggest advantages that, at least on paper, the Hurricanes have is that pass rush. The best way to neutralize it is get the football out of your hands really quick and then make this Hurricane secondary tackle. I think the second thing for Florida, you got to get the run game going, and it doesn't need to be something that you really lean on, because this Hurricanes front seven, it's salty. It's going to be hard to consistently run the football on this defense. That being said, you got to stay out of those obvious passing situations. You have to stay on schedule, because, again, in those third and long situations where this Miami Hurricanes team has multiple pass rushers inside and out that can get after it, you're toast if you live in those 3rd and 7+ situations. So for Florida, you don't necessarily need to run the football for 200+ yards, but you have to be able to keep this Miami Hurricanes defense kind of honest and staying out of those obvious pass rush situations. If they can do that, again, Florida's got a good chance to move the football against the Hurricanes defense that's really good.
that's where you want to attack. I think Miami's defensive line is up through the middle. I think there wasn't a reason you saw them making very concerted pushes to land guys in the portal. And you go get Simeon Barrow. Simeon Barrow's great. He is one of the better pass rushing defensive tackles I've seen. But if you're going to attack Simeon Barrow, you attack him head on. You try to run the ball at him. Not a huge defensive tackle. Marley Cook, also a very interesting guy that makes a lot of plays, but not a giant defensive tackle in his own right. So again, Miami has those guys like C.J. Clark, who I think can bang a little bit harder down in the paint, if you will, be tough against the run. But I do think at the end of the day, if that's where you're going to attack Miami's defensive line, I think that's where you go, because how physical those edge rushers are, how good they are in the pass rush. That's a really, really tough unit to go. I think this Florida, we're going to see what their offensive line's about, and I think they need to play good for what you said. They can't be in third and long that often.
Yeah, I think at least for that matchup, that Florida Gators offense versus the Hurricanes defense, it really does come down to what does the sack numbers look like? If this Miami Hurricanes team is teeing off on Florida, getting in those third and long situations, again, it's going to be really hard for Florida to consistently drop back in those obvious passing situations and throw the football against the pass rush that, again, I think is going to be a top 10 unit in the country. Flipping sides here, Dill, let's take a look at this Miami Hurricanes offense. Now, if you were to ask me the key to the game for this Hurricanes offense, and quite frankly, one of the keys for this Hurricanes team all year, it's running the football. And you can tell Mario Cristobal has built this program to control the line of scrimmage and run the football. We think it's going to be one of the better offensive lines that we see in the country, not to mention two running backs in Damian Martinez and Mark Fletcher, who are absolute hammers. So if you are Miami, you're going on the road into one of the most hostile environments that we see in all of college football. And believe me, it's going to be absolutely rocking in the swamp. What's the best way to kind of take a little life out of the stadium is run the football effectively. You look at Miami last year, Dill, they ran the football well. 5 yards per carry is a top 20 rushing attack in the country. And I think it even gets better because you certainly upgrade the running back room. I think the offensive line is going to be just as good, if not better. If you're Miami, you want to get the run game going early and often against the Florida Gators defense that last year struggled against the run, gave up 5.1 yards per carry. That was 117th in the country. If you ask me, we look up at the score. I wouldn't even need to see the score and just say, show me the rushing stats. If Miami can establish that run, it's going to mean some good things for that Miami Hurricanes team.
And that'll be the interesting test of what Ron Roberts has brought to this linebacker room, because I'm actually pretty comfortable, frankly, with what this defensive line is for Florida. I think they have good Banks, Jackson. I think those two are very good. Some of those young edge guys are tough physical. Sapp is about as physical, tough against the run as you'll find of a defensive end. Kelby Collins, I think another guy you hope to see take a bit more of a jump than maybe what he did last year, but another big physical, tough edge guy. I think this is going to be about what Shamar James and Pup Howard can be. Is how much better is this group going to get? Because I'm with you. Miami's rushing attack is going to be about as tough as anyone. They're going to be big, physical. They're not going to have a ton of easy lanes to get into with the linebackers, because they're going to be moving guys off the ball. So I think these linebackers need to have a day, and we're going to see if this Billy Napier revamped staff has made some progress with some very, very talented linebackers.
Yeah, fire me up for that linebacker room. Like Shamar James, Pup Howard, those are two of the more just specimen linebackers that you see in the country. And again, I think you said it right. They are playing behind the defensive line that I think is pretty damn good, right? You add Joey Slackman from Penn, another very, very good body on the inside. This is the first year I look at Florida's front seven, specifically the defensive line, and say, the depth is there. The last couple of years, the depth along the line of scrimmage has been a disaster. I think it's much better going into this year. Now, the second kind of key to the game for the Miami Hurricanes offense versus Gators defense, explosive plays, specifically in play action. That's why I think running the football is so important, not only because you want to run the football on the road in a hostile environment, but secondly, Cam Ward was elite in play action at Washington State. Now, he didn't do play action very much because Washington State's rushing attack was one of the worst rushing attacks that we saw in the country. Can you establish the run, force Florida to put some bodies in the box, then work play action, push the ball down the field? Because you look at this Florida Gators secondary and say, super, super talented. They gave up the explosive plays. You look at the numbers, only a 60% completion percentage given up by the Florida Gators. That's a solid number. 8.5 yards per pass attempt. That was 124th in the country. Florida got cooked so many times, giving up the explosive plays. Can Miami run the football aggressively, force Florida to get some bodies in the box, and then win with the explosive passing game off of that? If they run the football, hit their explosive plays, it's really hard to see Miami not going on the road winning this football game.
Yeah, and that I think that'll be a taller task than you may be thinking. Again, Florida had bad numbers against explosive plays last year, but I think there were frankly two big factors working against them as they were ultra young, a handful of true freshmen playing a lot, true sophomores, and they also were dealing with the new defensive coordinator. So I think, again, second year in that new scheme, I think a young, very, very talented group. I mean, that safety duo, I think, will be one of the better ones in the country, especially in the next couple of years. I think they have a lot of potential. I think they're going to be tough to be explosive against, but I do think people underrate Miami's wide receiver play, frankly.
100%. I mean, like, I see lists of like top 10 wide receivers in the country, and Xavier Restrepo is just never on the list. I think it's a crime. I think he's one of the best. Again, he's not necessarily that prototypical wide receiver one, but you talk about a guy that just gets open, catches a lot of footballs. That's Xavier Restrepo.
And that'll be an interesting matchup. Him and Sharif Denson. I mean,
yeah,
that's good on good. Those are two really good players. Sharif Denson, I think, is a young player, but has a ton of talent. I'm really excited to see what because I think you're right. I think even kind of look at that spring game, and I know it's a small sample, but it does feel like Restrepo is kind of going to be the safety blanket, the guy Cam Ward's going to lean on when he needs to make.
Restrepo's going to. I think Restrepo catches 100 passes this year. He is going to get peppered with targets. He's a guy that doesn't drop a lot of footballs and is the ideal wide receiver for Cam Ward. You look at how Cam Ward wants to operate: ball out quick, two wide receivers that can create separation. That is Xavier Restrepo. Dill, let's get into the pick here. Florida, we're going to take some heat regardless of where we go here. Miami going on the road to Ben Hill Griffin Stadium, 2.5-point favorites. Now, before I put you on the spot here, I will say Miami has struggled immensely on the road against Mario Cristobal, but this is the first time they have a plus quarterback. I mean, you've had in the past.
That's what I was going to say. I throw out everything because they had horrible quarterback play for most of his time. And that's his fault, but it was bad.
So I'll put you on the spot here. Miami 2.5-point favorites on the road here. Florida, who you got?
I think Miami. I think this should be probably outside of a field goal, frankly. And I think the main reason is and I'm just thinking about how this game could go. I kind of want to see it to believe it, if you will, for this Florida front seven and how tough can they be. I just look, Miami's gonna be about as tough as they come in dealing with the run. Florida, I still need to see it from the linebacker play. I thought it was really, really weak last year. I like the fact that they changed that coaching staff, add Pup Howard, but I need to see it first. I think if I'm just going right now, I think Miami's got a better avenue with the way they can attack the run and make it really, really hard to drop back and pass on the other side of the ball with a Florida team that I'm not convinced is going to be an elite rushing attack. So
you said it best, and I think you summed up how a lot of both Miami Hurricane and Florida Gator fans feel. I want to see it before I believe it. We've talked a lot about these two teams being really, really talented heading into the fall, and it's just never manifested. Somebody's got to win this game. I look at this game and say it's hard to pick against Miami because I think they match up really well against Florida. You talk about this Miami Hurricanes pass rush against a Florida Gators offensive line that struggled immensely. And again, I think it gets better, but I think Miami Hurricanes pass rush is a little bit different. I think they'll be able to run the football. You combine running the football effectively, having a quarterback that I think is one of the best in the country, and a pass rush that's elite. I think that type of stuff travels. Inside of a field goal, I'll take the Miami Hurricanes. But again, this is a game that I would not be surprised if Florida takes care of it.
Florida has a big spread in terms of what they could be.
100%. We saw it all last year.
So that's where I'm kind of at with Florida. They were playing so young. Again, another thing I feel like people don't account for is they were so young last year, returning a lot of guys, made some additions in the portal that I really, really like. Now, if they get back, if that talent starts to manifest, Florida's a really, really good team. So I think they just have a bigger variance. I kind of think I know what Miami is going to be. Obviously, that's just my think, and who knows if take that for what it's worth, let's say. But I just get a better feeling that I kind of trust what Miami is going to be a little bit more right now.
So both the boys rocking with the Hurricanes. The Florida Gator fans are going to give us some hell in the comment section. Warranted. Love it. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. Again, if y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Let it fly in the comment section. We'll talk to y'all later. Peace.